Here's Brody Brazil.
I can already sense that some of you have clicked on this video just so you can leave a nasty comment about sideline reporters. You don't like them, you don't like their personality, you don't like their contributions or their role on the game broadcast that you're watching. Now, I just want to say, you can obviously see what's going on here. I used to do this job for the San Jose Sharks. It's kind of how I broke in, technically a rinkside reporter. There are not necessarily sidelines of the NHL. Rinkside reporter for the San Jose Sharks, my first 4 or 5 years covering the team. I had a great experience. It was definitely a learning experience. I actually, in this video, want to provide a little bit more context and insight into the role by delivering 5 hot takes about sideline reporters here in 2025. And again, just to recap, I'm spelling this out from personal experience. It has been a while, but after doing the job and then watching a lot of other people do this similar job, I kind of feel like I know what it takes. I know what the good parts are, the hard parts are, the beneficial parts are, and where the pitfalls are of this role. By the way, I feel like I look a lot younger here, and I definitely felt a lot younger in all of those photos. That was the early 2010s right there. Okay, get myself off the screen, please. Let's begin with some sideline reporter aspects before we get into the hot takes here. This role of being on a broadcast, not to be doing the announcing or the analyzing, this role of a sideline reporter, it has kind of cycled in prominence of sports broadcasts in recent years. I think CBS in the mid-2000s, they went away from sideline reporters entirely, only to bring them back in high volume and high demand about 10 years later in 2014 or 15. Being a sideline reporter has springboarded many broadcast careers. They say, wow, you can do this job, this role under different difficult circumstances and different circumstances and under pressure and in a high-profile situation, and so try something else out. It's a very visible role because a lot of times the announcers are never seen on a broadcast. They come on at the beginning, they come on at the end, maybe during halftime or intermission or whatever, but the sideline reporter is seen quite a bit alongside the players, right on the field of play, right on the playing surface. So this role has springboarded a lot of broadcast careers. Again, it's often a highly visible role. It's a highly criticized role because you didn't like how something played out. You didn't like an interaction. You didn't like a question. There's a lot of places that being a sideline reporter can go wrong. But yeah, networks are starting to get back into this trend. They're stocking up on sideline talent recently. In fact, ESPN, for this upcoming 2025 football season, every NFL telecast is not only going to have 1 sideline reporter per game, they're doubling down to have 2. Obviously, 1 covering each sideline of the football field. Okay, now let's get into the start of my 5 hot takes here on sideline reporters. A big part of the job is interviewing players and coaches. In the heat of the moment, they've just come off the ice, they've just come off the court, they've just come off the field, and you're putting a microphone in their face. Interview success in these situations for a sideline reporter, it's similar to a Major League Baseball batting average. If you're batting .300 as a sideline reporter during interviews, that is a pretty solid performer. Now, I know the expectation is, why can't you nail it every single time? Well, because timing is everything. Something you were planning for did or didn't happen. Something great just happened. Maybe nothing really just happened. Timing is everything. How the subject is doing, how they're feeling, the type of person they are. Cliches are everywhere. If you're an interviewer and you ask a very detailed, very specifically great question, and the answer is something cliche, what more could you do about it? It kind of takes 2 to tango here. You need a great question. You need a great response. That's what everybody wants out of these situations. They want moments. They want something memorable. They want a little insight, something they weren't thinking about, or something that confirms what they were thinking about. But some sideline interviews are a home run, and that's why you probably do 7 out of 10 that are okay, but 3 out of 10 that are great. You do those 7 to get those 3. Does that make sense? They're not all going to be a home run, but some are. So you have to live up those moments and realize those are the moments why this role, this job, and this situation are important. Second hot take here. Most hits, and I say hits, that's when it's, let's go down to the sidelines, here's Brody Brazil, right? That's what the announcer will say, and then the sideline reporter will begin talking. That's called a hit in our production environment. Most hits are too planned, too formulaic, too formal, too constrained, and even too predictable. Now, I'm saying this in defense of a lot of sideline reporters that they're given 27 seconds to tell a whole story and fit it all in and have it time out and have all the words land perfectly. And then sometimes that 27 seconds gets cut down to 14 seconds because the play begins sooner than anybody was anticipating. And you don't want to be a sideline reporter that's still doing your thing while the football has been snapped, or the puck has been dropped, or the basketball has been put back in play, or a pitch has been made in Major League Baseball and all of a sudden somebody hits it over the fence. You don't want to be doing your sideline report over a highlight. So timing and planning, and it's just too formulaic, right? It's too scripted. It's too, let's go down to you. Let's make this very obvious that we're handing it off to somebody else who's then very formally going to hand it back to the announcers. A lot of structure, right? It protects what I'll say is less talented, but really less comfortable sideline reporters. They've got their notes. They've got what they're going to say. They're just going to be on camera for a few seconds. They're going to read the rest of it. Back to you, right? Because it's so structured, it's so formulaic that at some point, even a robot could just read what has been written down. But it also, and this is the point I want to make, when hits are so planned and so formulaic and so formal, it really restricts those sideline reporters with something to say, with some personality, with those who can elaborate, with those who can really hammer home a point, but it doesn't have to be all scripted. It doesn't have to be so laid out in advance, so predictable. This is a dynamic between the sideline reporter, but really the producer in charge. Look, the sideline reporter does not get to dictate how the game broadcast goes, how they're placed, their hits, their timing, all that stuff. That's up to the producer. So a very good producer will kind of unleash one of their sideline reporters and make them more part of the flow of the broadcast instead of like, here's your little chunk of the pie, here's your little chunk of the pie, now go sit in the corner and go home. Use that person, don't constrain that person. I think a really good sideline reporter in their specific roles, either going to be covering the game or the flavor of the game, but it's really hard to do both. Now, what do I mean by that? It's difficult to be in the stands talking about the latest souvenirs that the team has unveiled, or the new concession stand, or talking to the family of an athlete. It's hard to do all of that and then go down to the dugout and interview a player who just hit a walk-off home run. It's possible, but generally, if you're there to cover the game, it's less jarring to the viewer if you just cover the game. Or if you're in the stands covering the flavor and the sights and sounds of the game, then just do that. It is a little bit disjointed to the viewer when you do a bit of both. It's great, and I understand pushing the limits and wanting to get it all in, but it kind of, again, it diverts the viewer of where is this person going to be next. Sometimes the ambiance of a game and the side story is totally worth it. Like there's enough that you've gained from practice or a pregame session, and you can play some clips back. Obviously, you don't need to be covering every aspect of the game. There's a lot of background you can provide as a sideline reporter. But either the game or the flavor of it, it just should not feel forced one way or another, or trying to force both. I think that's the point. The role of a sideline reporter is not supposed to be somebody who played the game. Honestly, it's the same thing for an announcer, really. It's not supposed to be somebody with that, I played the game at the highest level experience, I'm here to translate that to you. The sideline reporter is supposed to be a conduit to the viewer. This is somebody who needs to be a storyteller. They need to be a quick thinker. They need to have creative presentation, because that alone can elevate anything. It can make anything more interesting if it's presented with some thought and some creativity. This is somebody who's got to be on their toes. They've got to be a pro's pro. If you're really good at this, you are translating facts and information and interesting things to the viewer, who might be an expert viewer, who might be a casual viewer, who might be a viewer that has never seen you before. You get one chance to make one good impression. You really have to be on your toes. This is not an analyst role. I know a lot of people will say, well, that's a dumb question. Yeah, but you know what? It was the question that most people were actually thinking watching the broadcast. I know it's not the question that athletes might ask other athletes, but this person is a conduit. This person is not necessarily a former athlete. Yeah, you can think like one. Yeah, you can be in the mindset of an athlete. But let's be honest, the sideline reporter is not the former athlete. And then the last point I want to make here, the last hot take, so to speak, the top sideline reporters do enhance every game broadcast. Broadcasts are better no matter what you're watching. The Super Bowl, a preseason game of something, a regular season game, a rivalry game. Sideline reporters can enhance every single game broadcast, but the group of sideline reporters that are really good at it, that can enhance a broadcast, it's a really small group, it feels like here in 2025. There's only a few household names of sideline reporters that are considered top tier. And I'm not being disrespectful. It's not to say that there's not a lot of talented people, but only a small few have been doing this job to become household names for a while, for a long enough time that you would recognize them and say, oh, I've seen them do a great job at this before. It's a rotational role. It's fit into such a small little narrow space that nobody really gets the chance to kind of branch out and be a little bit more. And so I'm saying that there are a small group of individuals who elevate what they do. But the unfortunate part is that it's still a small group. So when you look at sideline reporters as a whole, you say, well, I don't think they bring much to the broadcast. Yes, that small top tier do, but maybe you don't recognize everybody else is doing the same thing. A sideline reporter could and should be as impactful, as popular, as relevant as game announcers if presented correctly. So that's my thought on sideline reporters. I think they've got a place. I think they've got a time. You have to understand what they're trying to do and who they're trying to cater to. And man, I do not belong in that group of just very good-looking people across the board. And then there's me from my late 20s in a very bad screenshot. Get that off the screen too. All right. Those are my thoughts on sideline reporters. Let me know what you have to think and say in all of this, and please be appropriate. Please be respectful. Please don't even necessarily make this personal unless you want to compliment somebody. Put all that in the comments section down below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. I would love to see you back here next time on the channel. And to do that, make sure you're subscribing.